Have you ever watched dozens of video editing tutorials, followed every step, recreated the same effect, but when it's time to edit something on your own, your mind just goes blank? That's exactly where I was stuck while learning DaVinci Resolve. So instead of watching random tutorials, I decided to follow a 90-day roadmap inspired by Ritu Solanki. And this video is what happened in week 1 of that journey. If you are also starting your editing journey, follow along with this series. There are thousands of tutorials online, but the problem is tutorials teach you how to copy effects, not how to think like an editor. You follow the steps, you recreate the result, but when you open the software alone, you don't know where to start. So I decided to stop jumping between tutorials and instead follow a structured learning roadmap for 90 days and document the journey. First step of my editing journey was installing DaVinci Resolve. The great thing is that the free version already has everything you need to start. Next was learning how to create a project and understanding important settings like FPS and resolution. Now let's quickly create our first project in DaVinci Resolve. You can follow along with me. Open DaVinci Resolve, click on New Project, name it something simple like Practice 1 and click on Create. This is our new project. Now for the project setup, go to the bottom right and click on this setting icon. Here we have the timeline resolution. This basically decides the quality of your final video. For YouTube videos, you can keep it at 1920 by 1080, which is full HD. If you are creating shorts, you can enable vertical resolution. But for now, I'm focusing on long form videos. Also make sure your timeline frame rate is set to 24 or 30 FPS. 24 gives a cinematic feel and 30 is commonly used for YouTube. One thing I noticed is that sometimes editing can feel slow, especially with heavy files. So inside optimized media and render cache, you can reduce playback load using proxy media. For now, I'll keep it simple and not go too deep into these settings. Once everything looks good, just click on save. Since I'm just starting out, I don't want to get overwhelmed with too many settings. This is more than enough to begin. If you have done this, your project is ready and you have already completed the first real step in editing. I also spent some time exploring the tools and interface inside DaVinci Resolve. At first, it looked really overwhelming. There were so many buttons and panels everywhere. But then I realized I don't need to understand everything at once. I just focused on the main sections that I used most of the time. This area here is the media pool. This is where all your imported files are stored. This is the viewer where you can preview your clips. And this section at the bottom is the timeline where the actual editing happens. On the right side, we have the inspector, where you can adjust things like position, scale, and basic settings of your clip. Instead of trying to learn everything, I just focused on these core sections. And once I understood the basic layout, the interface started feeling much easier to use. So if you are just starting, don't worry about all the buttons. Just get comfortable with these main areas first. Another important thing I practiced this week was importing and organizing media inside DaVinci Resolve. Earlier, I used to just drag all my clips randomly into the timeline and it quickly became messy. So this time, I focused on organizing everything properly before starting the edit. Even before importing files, I created a simple folder structure on my computer. For example, I keep separate folders for footage, audio, images, and project files. This way, when I import everything into the software, it's already structured and easy to find. Inside DaVinci Resolve, I also started using bins to organize my files. And one really useful feature I discovered is something called power bins. Power bins are basically shared folders that are available across all your projects. So if you have assets like music, sound effects, or overlays that you use often, you can store them in power bins and access them anytime without importing again. This saves a lot of time and keeps your workflow much cleaner. So now, instead of searching for files again and again, everything is already organized and ready to use. And honestly, this small change made editing feel much faster and less stressful. Now, let's move to the timeline. This is where the actual editing happens. At first, this was the most confusing part for me. But once I understood it, everything started to make sense. There are two ways to create a timeline. The first way is right-click inside the media pool, select new timeline and create a timeline. The second way is even simpler. Just drag any video clip from the media pool into the timeline area. As soon as you do that, a timeline will be created automatically and your clip will appear here. This is where you arrange and edit your footage. The timeline is basically like a workspace where you build your videos step by step. You will notice there are different tracks. The top tracks are for video and the bottom tracks are for audio. You can move clips around, rearrange them and decide the order of your video. If you want to zoom in or zoom out of the timeline, you can use this zoom control here. At first, it might look a bit overwhelming, but you don't need to understand everything right now. Just focus on one thing, placing your clip and arranging them in order. Once I started practicing this, I realized that editing is less about effects and more about how you structure your clip. And honestly, just getting comfortable with the timeline already made me feel more confident. So if you have done this, you have already taken a big step in learning video editing. The most important skill I practiced this week was cutting and trimming clips. At first, I thought editing was all about adding effect, but I realized that a big part of editing is actually removing unnecessary parts. To start, I simply dragged a clip into the timeline, then I used the blade tool to cut the clip wherever I wanted. You can select the blade tool from here or use the shortcut key B to make it faster. Once I cut the clip, I could remove unwanted part and keep only the important moments. I also used trimming to adjust the length of clips by dragging the edges. This helped me make the video feel tighter and more natural. The more I practiced this, and honestly, just practicing cuts made a huge difference in how my edits looked. One thing I realized during this week is that even the basics can feel confusing in the beginning. Understanding FPS, navigating the interface, figuring out the timeline, all of these things take a little time to get comfortable with. But once you practice daily, it slowly starts making sense. After practicing for a few days, I started feeling more comfortable inside the software. Opening the editor didn't feel as intimidating anymore. This is just week 1 of my 90-day journey to become a better video editor. If you are also learning video editing and sometimes feel stuck watching tutorials, you can join this journey with me. Every week, I'll share what I practiced, what worked and what didn't. If you want to follow the journey, make sure to subscribe to FramingFX and let me know in the comments what is the most confusing thing for you in video editing right now. I'll see you in week 2. If you are starting your editing journey, comment day 1. Let's grow together.